Hey everybody, how you guys doing tonight? Welcome to our latest edition of Pop-Up Interviews. Tonight we're going to be interviewing none other than Miss MJ Berst. She is a vetted EXP, and while she no longer executes events full-time, she is still active in the EXP community and has a wealth of knowledge and information that would not only benefit myself but other EXPs on their journey to progressing within the experiential marketing industry. So if you guys haven't already, go ahead, join, share this video, like it, provide us with any questions, any comments, any feedback throughout the actual pop-up. MJ will be joining us shortly. But before we get started, I just want to thank you guys all for tuning in for the pop-up interview tonight. I'm currently here in LA. I'm on tour for the next 6 months and just enjoying having to conduct this interview and reflect on just life and the life of Nipsey Hussle. Today was his funeral here in LA. So it's just been a day for me and just also thinking about my life and the legacy that I want to leave. So MJ is here. She's in the building. And without
Hello.
further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with our pop-up. And first, I just want to say thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking the time to share your experience and share your knowledge and to be a light for us, not only in the experiential marketing industry. Can you hear me? Oh, I think she's frozen. She'll come back to us in a minute. But yes, what was I saying? So yes, Nipsey's funeral was today. Oh, there she is.
There I am.
Oh, good now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, just bear with us, guys. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we should be good to go in a minute. Good, MJ?
There you go. Yep, I can hear you.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and jump right into the pop-up. Tell us about your experience and how you began working in the experiential marketing industry.
Yeah, so I have worn a lot of hats in the experiential world, and it's kind of an accident that I wound up in it. I was really planning on going like full speed ahead into music. So I was in a band and I was gonna move to Hollywood and have my name in lights and do all of these cool, amazing rock star things and try not to join the Forever 27 Club. And never really thought about business or marketing or any of those things. When I was graduating high school, I didn't want to go to college necessarily. And then I got a music scholarship and just decided, well, I mean, going to college is like the thing to do and make mom and dad happy. And it's free because I'm going to get a scholarship. So that's cool. Um, 2 years in, I hated it. I hated that I wasn't really pursuing what I wanted to do. I wasn't singing music or making music that I wanted to be making, and I dropped out because I was like, well, this is stupid. This is not making me happy. It's just not what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't think I need a degree to be a rock star. That was kind of my mindset. So I started interning at a radio station thinking, oh, if I can meet the right people and network, maybe I can get them to listen to my music and we can get signed to a big label. And in doing that, I started doing all of these events for this radio station, and we would do meet and greets with like all these cool bands. So I got to meet a ton of my favorite musicians, and then we got to go to concerts for free. And I'm like, this is almost better than being a rock star, only I'm not making any money. And I actually had a friend. I was out at an event, and she came up to me and she was like, "Hey, she's like, you're doing events. You should come work some promotions with me." And I'm like, "What are promotions?" I have no idea what you're. She's like, "You're doing one right now." I'm like, "I am." And lo and behold, we were doing a radio remote, which is part of promotional marketing. And yeah, she signed me up to do a gig for Jack Daniels. So my first like promo girl gig, I was a Jack Daniels girl, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! I'm making like 25 bucks an hour plus tips, and I get to drink free Jack Daniels. Like, what more could I want as like a 21-year-old person?" Um, but yeah, I eventually ended up getting a gig with Vitamin Water. Just happenstance. I applied for the job. I was probably a year into doing any sort of event marketing and kind of knew what I was doing, but really had no idea. I got hired on as an assistant manager. And then
Mm.
a few months into the program, my boss actually left. So she took an opportunity for another job, and I ended up taking over the program and was like, wow, this is like really cool. I learned about budgeting and I learned about sponsorships and I learned about networking and really just business acumen and just professionalism.
Mhm.
I really love that other than the radio station kind of, but it was a very lax atmosphere. So there wasn't a lot of, things at stake necessarily.
Mm.
And once I kind of got a taste, I was like, this seems like a viable career path. And my parents were kind of wondering if I was ever going to go back to college, and just sort of made that transition back to school. Had a much more clear vision of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I graduated from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee
Mhm.
with a marketing bachelor's in business administration, but I majored in marketing. So
Right.
that's kind of where it all starts.
So do you think that for the people that may be watching this saying, I don't want to pursue college or college is not for me, you stepped out for a while and you came back. Do you feel like that time out of school helped you to kind of, I know you said it helped you get clear, but what do you say to the people that are still like, do I need education? Do I need to go to school? What do you say to those people?
It's such a it's such a double-edged sword, right? Because personally, I think college is kind of an extinct institution. We have the internet. We are more connected now than we've ever been able to be connected. We have more access to information than we've ever had before.
Hmm.
You can learn a lot of things just reading books and watching YouTube videos. But I think the biggest issue is that if you want to do corporate or a lot of like bigger agency stuff, they still are looking for that 4-year degree. Not saying that you can't do it without. And
Hmm.
part of my, I guess, long-term goal of doing what I'm doing is to really kind of break down that stigma, because people don't need a degree to do experiential marketing.
Right.
In
Yeah.
my mind, I mean, I can't really convince big giant corporations that that's the case, but I've seen a lot of people who hustle really hard, who are very professional, they're prompt, they're great with people, who I work with out in the field, and they don't have college degrees, but they would be great at running a program, and I would hate to see them overlooked just because they don't have that piece of paper.
Hmm. And speaking of that, just being able to run a program and have the great characteristics from a work ethic standpoint, when you started, as a Jack Daniels girl, you moved to vitamin water. What are some of the things that you learned along the way, and how have you been able to progress, from just being a promo model to running a actual program?
Yeah. So, well, part of it, I knew I wasn't going to be like fit and trim forever. I was lucky when I was younger and I could eat whatever I wanted, but now I'm in my 30s and my metabolism is not as great as it used to be. So, it was great while it lasted. But there's just a lot of there when I first started in this industry, there was such a, I don't want to say stigma, but just such a thing about being like a promotional model and like being the model and looking the part. And there was all these casting calls and emails and calls going around being like, we need someone who's this tall and is this cup size and weighs this much. And it was like all of these things. Um, and
And
it's not,
what year was that?
that was like 2007,
Wow.
probably.
Okay. Okay.
So
It's
it's
changed.
crazy how like it's changed, and for the better. I would say for the better.
Hmm.
But there was just a lot of, I guess, pressure to be the good-looking, attractive, whatever promotional person. And I don't necessarily think that that's needed in this industry. Brands connect with people regardless of their race or their weight or their education level. Different people connect with different brands for different reasons. And to just pinhole yourself into hiring girls who are 5'10" and blonde hair and blue eyes really kind of limits your reach and your demographic and your messaging. So I kind of caught the tail end of that wave coming into what I was doing. So I'm thankful that it's different than what it was. But that aside, I think some of the key learnings were just really being prompt, being professional, following up, just being respectful. You never know when a client's going to be on site, and just always kind of bringing your A game, and being the face of the brand. Because when you're out there in the field and you're wearing a Coca-Cola t-shirt and sampling Coke Zero, like you are that person. You are Coke Zero for the day. So if you make a wrong impression, it's not only bad for you because it's, word travels quickly in this industry. It's also bad for the brand as a whole. You always want to leave people with a positive impression of whatever it is that you're promoting.
So what was to date like one of your most memorable events that you managed or you were a part of?
Yeah, so after I left Vitamin Water, my first gig out of college was for an ad agency, and it was an ad and marketing agency. And I worked a lot with General Motors, mostly on their Chevrolet account. And we had a contract with Miller Park. So we had a couple vehicles inside of the actual stadium, and it was just really cool because I got to hire a bunch of my friends to work these events. We got to watch a lot of Brewers games once we got done working, so that was fun. But it was really cool just seeing. That's like Chevy's target demographic. So we would have people come up to us who would have like the Chevy bow tie tattooed on their body and would just be like so proud that like, oh, I can't believe Chevy's here. We love your brand and we love what you're doing. And just kind of getting that first taste of a passionate consumer. That was something that was just really memorable to me. And it's throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of memorable brands. So Chevy, and then I worked for Harley Davidson for a little bit, at Polaris after that, and then have done a lot of other brand stuff in between. And it's cool to really see when you connect with that person. There's not a whole lot of other careers or industries, I think, that are where you really are the touch point to the people that are buying your product. And I've always enjoyed that part of it.
And talk a little bit about working for an ad agency, because a lot of people, a lot of EXPs may not know that companies go through ad agencies sometime to hire experiential marketing agencies to execute their events. So just explain that dynamic really briefly for someone who may not, know that occurs.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So there's basically two sides of experiential. So you have the corporate side and then you have the agency side. And depending on the company, some corporations have their own internal events department and they run all their own events. Harley Davidson is actually one of those. When I worked for them, we had all of our staff go out to all like Sturgis and Daytona Bike Week and all the big events like that. There wasn't really any agency staff that was coming. Maybe a few here and there, but for the most part, that was what was kind of cool about it because we actually had like company staff go out to the events. Um, but a lot of companies will outsource that portion of it's usually a part of their marketing department, and they've got dollars that are allocated to spend on usually digital and traditional, and then event and experiential marketing. So your digital is obviously going to be like your Facebook, your social media, your SEO, that kind of stuff. Your traditional is going to be your print and your TV and your out of homes, like your billboards and stuff like that. And then event and experiential is actually doing like live campaigns and live activations. So that's when you would see like a Jack Daniels girl, or I mean, you see brands all the time. It doesn't even have to be food or beverage. There's technology companies that do it. There's really, I've seen insurance companies do campaigns. There's so many different ways you can do an experiential marketing campaign. But essentially, yes, so then they'll take whatever that amount of money is allocated and they will find an agency that specializes in event and experiential marketing. And that's usually when you're getting your emails from, those staffing companies that say, hey, we need 5 brand ambassadors and 1 field manager from these dates and these are the hours and here's the pay, and submit your resume or sign into our portal and submit yourself to this event. So those are kind of the two different avenues that you can work in an experiential environment.
And do you feel like the avenue where Harley Davidson took per se, where they did all their own in-house marketing, was that, I don't necessarily say effective, but what was like the advantages to having Harley Davidson, handling that versus an agency? Not saying an agency can't do a good job, because there are great experiential marketing agencies out there as well. But being on both sides of that, what have you seen, the advantages of having everybody in-house?
Yeah. So Harley is such a cool brand because it's probably got some of the most loyal customers out of any brand that there is. They know their product, they love their product. Motorcycles are expensive, they're a luxury item. You don't need a bike, but you want one. So the people who get them are just very passionate about that.
Mhm.
The Probably the biggest pro of having their own staff come out is that the people who work there also know the brand really well. They know the nuances. They bring out their own engineers. They bring out people who are touching those bikes day in and day out and really know the nuances and the ins and out, because motorcycles are, you can do a lot with them, like as far as customization and just and then you get the people who are into like older Harleys. So I mean, when you have someone who's been with the company and been with the brand, they just kind of know those things that someone who's just hired on from a staffing agency wouldn't necessarily know.
Mhm.
But they're also a unique company. Not a lot of companies, I think, will have that much scrutiny when they're out doing an event, and your customers aren't really asking you such detailed questions.
Mhm.
But they're a brand that does face that, and that's kind of how they combat that while they're out doing events.
Mhm.
um, it's also a cool way to just connect with your customer when someone comes up and you tell them, like, yeah, I actually work at the motor company, and I I've put together a bike on the line, or I helped the engineering and the design behind this new model. People think that's really cool. They're like, "Oh, I got to
Mhm.
talk to the guy who designed this part of the fairing," and they just get excited about that kind of stuff. So it's a neat thing. Not every company should do that, but
Mhm.
that's an instance where it really does work to their advantage.
And just talk about your transition. So from going from brand ambassador to manager, regional market manager, to working on the account side, how was that transition for you?
Yeah, so I really had no major career path or plan. Even once I graduated, I knew I wanted to stay in events, but I didn't
Mhm.
realize all the different caveats that exist with inside the event industry. And when I took over that vitamin water campaign, I wasn't planning on doing that. Like, my boss quit and I just kind of got promoted. So I was like, oh, here we go. I guess I'll figure this out. Um, and then I just kind of looked at people around me who were doing things that I'm like, oh, I think I would maybe want to, run a larger team, or I think it'd be fun to get on the planning side, or I think it'd be fun to just finding different things that looked interesting, and kind of just throwing my name in the hat and see how that panned out. I will say the corporate side is a lot slower than the agency side. So you're in a
Mhm.
lot more of the planning and the strategic phases of things, and you're also the purse strings. So if you are working with an agency, you kind of have that final say, like, no, we don't have the budget to do this, or we really want to do this, so what can we cut in other areas to make that happen?
Mhm.
Um, but the agency side is a lot more fast paced. It's fun. It's super creative because you're kind of coming up with a lot of these activations and these event elements. So there's pros and cons to both. If you really like being out in the field, I would stick to like a field marketing manager gig, or even like a regional manager, something where you're overseeing, so you actually get to travel.
Mhm.
Depending on the agency that you're with, a lot of times you're much more kind of just like in the weeds and in a lot of like the details, and you're not necessarily out in the field. Or if you are, you're just out there kind of making sure, when you're doing setup, that things are where they're supposed to be, and working accordingly. And then you kind of
Mhm.
just take off and go back to the office. So kind of just depends on what you're looking for in a career, I guess.
And speaking from Just having that experience working in the field, how has that helped you when you worked as an account manager? Because you see things from a different light and you're able to relate more to the EXPs in the field. So how has that been beneficial, transitioning from starting in the field first, where I'm gonna just be honest with you, sometimes we have account managers that don't understand nothing that goes on out here. They don't understand logistics, the day-to-day operations of executing a tour. You're expected to be in one place in 5 hours, but they don't understand the traffic or what, can happen or instances that can occur to get there. So I always like working with account managers who have been in the field that understand it and get it. And you being on both sides and working with field staff and being an account manager, what are some of the takeaways that you've been able to, implement looking at it from both sides?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, and I totally know what you're talking about. 'Cause a couple years ago, I'd worked a campaign up here, and it was I forget where the company that hired us was out of California, and they had put together like the whole campaign. And it kicked off in I think in March or April. So Minnesota, I mean, literally, if I look out my window right now, there's like 6 inches of snow on the ground, and it's the middle of April at this point. And so anyway, so this company they hired us for this event. It was outdoors, and they're like, well, we're providing jackets for you, and you have to wear hats and mittens, and you can wear boots if you want to. And our jackets come and they're like windbreakers. They're like not even I'm like, this is winter still in Minnesota. I know it's April and it shouldn't be cold out, but it's cold and we are very underdressed. So I think just having that experience and knowing that it's the whole everything looks good on paper, but that doesn't mean it's going to translate well to when you're actually out doing the activation in the field. So having just that experience and just knowing what it's like to be out there, I think makes me a much more effective account manager because I see a lot of those things and I can plan for them. Or trade shows are another one where it's like, yes, you're indoors, but every venue that you go to in a trade show is different. And there's been several instances where we've got our booth laid out and we know where we're going and we've got everything laid out on our diagram, and we get there and the facility forgot to tell us that there is a giant pillar in the middle of our booth that's holding up the venue essentially. And so it's just like the little things like that that you learn how to prepare for when you've been out in the field before, that I think definitely makes you a bigger asset to a company if you're switching from field work then to account management or even internal work for a company.
And I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a minute. What do you say to the EXP who feels like um, this account manager doesn't understand me? I should be getting paid more. Why can't they increase the budget to ensure that I'm compensated for A, B, C, or D? Or how come they're not paying as much, or I'm not being appreciated? Because a lot of EXPs reach out to me and say, hey, I don't understand why, this agency is doing this, or they're staffing this person, or I'm not being chosen and I'm consistently applying. And, some of them have a sense of entitlement. I'm gonna be honest. This is not all good. You have EXPs that have that entitlement mentality as well. But just to play devil's advocate for a minute, when you are an account manager and you dealing with this, like how do you kind of, I don't want to say ease it over, but just when you're dealing with the EXP, how do you explain to them like it's more that goes into it? What would you say to that EXP?
Yeah, so a lot of times the budgets are set before things are fully hashed out and thought through, which a lot of that comes from having people who haven't worked out in the field before and they are putting together these plans and they haven't accounted for A, B, and C going wrong. They're just thinking that everything's going to go smoothly. So then so for me, I like to build contingencies into my budget because I know stuff isn't going to go according to plan, but not everybody does that, at least not right off the bat. So that's always like a pinch point or a pain point, I think, because there are instances where you do have to ask your staff to stay longer or stay later, and finding ways to compensate them might not be in the budget. They might be on a weekly rate, or like the tour rate is this, and it was kind of signed off on ahead of time. Um, I know not a lot, but I feel like more companies now are doing like completion bonuses and things like that. Um, and when you're in the negotiation process too, like ask that. I think everything is negotiable. That's a big
Mhm.
thing that I've learned. I always ask. People think that if they ask for more, that someone's going to rescind the job offer, and I've never had someone say no, we're not going to hire you because you've asked for too much money. I mean, don't be exorbitant in your your over asking amount, but be reasonable. If the rate's $20 an hour, don't be afraid to ask for 22 or 23. The worst they're going to say is no, and then you're probably still going to be booked for $20 an hour.
Mhm.
Um, and just really asking those things up front. Oh, like, do you do a completion bonus? Is there a referral bonus? Like, if I refer my friends, can I get a couple bucks here and there? Oh, do you guys do a per diem? And just kind of thinking through those things where you're still thinking about yourself, also thinking about the company. A lot of times there's a little wiggle room in the budget, but it really just depends on who's planning it. And sometimes the staffing agencies are like the third person in line. So there's instances where corporation will hire an ad agency or a marketing agency, and then the marketing agency will hire an additional agency. So there's
Mhm.
there's more dollars at play than makes sense, because you're paying your agency, then you're paying your other agency, and then you're paying the brand ambassador. So there's a lot of costs that seem invisible to the person at the out in the field level. But there's a lot of moving parts that we don't always see or think about.
Mhm. So when you're hiring EXPs for a potential program, what are some things that you look for, characteristics when you're looking at resumes? Because all you can look at is resumes and headshots. So for the EXPs, I'm launching a course that talks about obtaining tour opportunities. And I did a webinar on resumes and interview tips. What are some of your resume and interview tips for EXPs?
Yeah. So having a good resume is key. Having a good LinkedIn is key. Having your resume and your LinkedIn match is also key, because I'm probably going to check both. And if there's weird gaps and weird inconsistencies, that's kind of a red flag right off the bat. Um, but having a promo resume is also different than having like a regular resume. I kind of keep track of all my different events and things that I've worked over the years, but now I've just got my professional resume, and if I see a promotion, I'll usually just apply to the job and say, "This is my professional resume. Here's some of the promotions that I've worked over the years. I've transitioned mainly from field work and BA work into corporate, but I still like to do this stuff for fun or on the side." Um, but I think just um, having like different experience helps. A lot of people will stick with a certain type of product, which is fine if that's kind of the work that you want to do. But
Mhm.
having a diverse resume helps, especially because it just shows that you're willing to take initiative, and take on a different brand, or maybe something that you're not comfortable with. Um, for me, I understand that campaigns are usually short-lived, so
Mhm.
where that might be a red flag to some employers, I get that. Oh, you worked a 6-month campaign for so and so, and then your campaign ended, and now you're so while it probably looks like job hopping to a normal HR person, it'll look different to someone like me who's worked a lot of different campaign work over the years.
Mhm.
Um, just having good grammar and good spelling. Just have someone proofread your resume before you send it in. That it helps leaps and bounds.
Mhm.
Um, that's a big one. And then don't be afraid either. Like, if you don't have a lot of experience, I'm not necessarily shying away from candidates who don't have any experience. I've hired some of my friends who have like, I know they're outgoing and they have no problem talking to people, and they've never worked a promotion in their life, but I'll be there and they're gonna talk and get the job done, and I'm not
Mhm.
afraid bringing them out with me.
Mhm.
So it's just once you're on the phone with them, you really get a good feel. I know the resume is really what gets you that phone call. So
Mhm.
have that just cleaned up and buttoned up, but don't be afraid to apply for stuff, even if you feel like, well, I've only worked a couple of programs and I don't really feel like I'm qualified. If the campaign is hurting for people, and if you are good on the phone and you're outgoing and you're well spoken and polite, all those things go really far, and a lot of that is transferable out into the field.
That's true. And like you said, a lot of EXPs may shy away because they may not feel like they are qualified or they fit what the qualifications say on paper. But you're a testament. When you get EXPs on the phone, you can get a good glimpse or judge of character based on just having a conversation with them, good or bad.
Right.
So, experiential marketing, what opportunities has it been able to open up for you working in this industry?
I've traveled a ton, and I'm so grateful for that. I have been to, well, I've been to 39 states, and I would say about 30 of them are on the company dime, which has just been awesome. And I've gotten good at planning, not so much anymore because I don't travel as much as I used to, but I got really good at planning out my days. So I would have a couple free days. So wherever I would go to, I could actually take a couple days and explore and take in the culture and, go on Yelp or TripAdvisor or Google and figure out what the cool things to do were while I was in town. So, like, I did the Hoover Dam tour, which was awesome when I was out working an event. And I just, Seattle's one of my favorite places to go visit. I just love all the travel opportunities that have been afforded to me. I got to go overseas, so we did some setup for an event over in Austria, which was really cool. Never thought I would go to Austria. Did a motorcycle rally in Nice in the south of France, which was amazing. So just it's just opened up my life to so many cool, awesome things. It made me get a passport, which made me leave the country. So I'm super grateful for that. I'm also just thankful for all the learning that I've done. So um, probably like the biggest thing was just like learning how to manage money and like learning how to have a budget, especially when I was doing a ton of contract work because I didn't necessarily have consistent pay coming in. Um, and then really like learning how to get a budget together. I was working at a job and then I got laid off and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I don't have like I have a basic budget in place, but how am I gonna make these dollars stretch till I figure something out? And yeah, so now I've like super nerded out. I've got this Excel budget that
Me
I
too.
do
Me
every
too.
month and
Me too. Expensify. I use Expensify now, so I switched to app based, which is pretty much
yes,
good too.
that's awesome. So yeah, I'm just meeting the people. I've met so many cool people throughout the years. So those are probably the three big things, like travel and just learning budgeting and adulting skills, and then just connect. Like even with you, like I'm super excited that I got to connect with you. Like this industry just brings people together, and I just love that.
And speaking of bringing people together, how has it impacted you from building relationships with other EXPs as well and affording them opportunities to begin a career as an EXP?
Yes, I love to pass on opportunities. I still get so many emails from promo companies that I don't really work with anymore because it's during my working hours or I just don't have time or I just, I'm just like, I just don't want to do this because I just don't want to. So I am more than happy to pass on opportunities that I do have. I've kind of got a core network of people that I reach out to, and I'm always looking to expand that and just it's like share the opportunities. There's a lot of
Mhm.
cool things I've been afforded, and I would love to open up this world to other people because I think it really is. It's fun and it's life changing, and there's definitely like a grind component to it. Like you've got to hustle, and you've got to prove your worth a lot. But it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of really good people. There are probably less than five people who I've got on my little blacklist that I don't ever want to work with again. They're few and far between. It's a pretty good industry, and I'm thankful for that.
And speaking of just being able to move and venture outside of being an EXP, you are an entrepreneur and an investor. She don't want to brag about it, but I'm going to brag because she talks about budgeting and smart money tips and figuring it out. But MJ has figured it out, and she's been able to take the tools that she learned as an EXP to learn how to supplement income and have funds because as you know, as an EXP, there's no retirement. We don't have a pension plan. And, you know, a lot of EXPs may be asking, okay, do I have a shelf life? How do I save for life after an EXP if I want to make this a full-time career? And you've been able to implement some great tools in your life with investing properties, becoming an entrepreneur, which has been able to assist you. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, kind of like my career into experiential marketing, my real estate endeavors were also not planned. They just sort of happened. I bought my first duplex when I was 27, and I was more or less just thinking, hey, if somebody else lives in one of the other units, that'll pay a big chunk of my mortgage, and I can spend more money on beer. I don't know. That was kind of my mindset at the time. But no, and then just really just having, a tool to build wealth. So there's a book that I read when I was in my early 20s that I reread several years ago, and it resonated a lot more with me as a later 20, early 30 something year old than it did when I was in my early 20s. But it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's
Yes,
by Robert Kiyosaki. And
yes.
it really kind of changed my mindset on a lot of things. I was never really sure what this whole passive income thing was about, and just kind of fell into it as I was like, well, I just want cheap rent. I wasn't really thinking about the long term, like, oh, like if I don't live in this place, I can rent it out and it can cash flow for me. That was not really my mindset back then. But I lived in my duplex for about a year, and then I got a job up in Minnesota. And
Mhm.
I was like, well, I don't want to sell it. Like, I just bought it. And I feel like I could probably rent it out. And that was really kind of what gave me the faith that, oh, this actually works. Like, I got it filled pretty easily, and it was cash flowing like 500 bucks a month. And I was like, okay, cool. But at that point, I wasn't thinking like, oh, if I buy more of these, I can keep doing this. It was just like, oh, this is like my extra money for the month. It basically subsidizes my rent up here, and so be it.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I was like, I think I want to buy another rental property, and just kind of got the wheels turning and knew I had to save some money up and figure out how to even do that. I was like, I know people know how to do this, but I don't know how to do this. So
Mhm.
I got plugged into some cool just investment groups that have really opened up my eyes to the entire world of real estate investing. And yeah, I just bought my second property a few months back. So we're still fixing it up.
Mhm.
It's not rented out yet, but the goal is to have everything rented out by June 1st, and get that cash flowing as well.
Congratulations. So, as an EXP who's looking to move into investing or real estate or just becoming an entrepreneur, what advice do you have for them? Like if they want to start their own business or find a way to supplement income, find out what they want to do, because some may not know. I want to invest, I want to start my own business. What would you say to them?
Yeah. Buy a duplex. That would be my advice, because it's a great way for someone else to pay a big chunk of your mortgage. Also, if you travel at all, you can always consider Airbnb your place while you're on the road.
Mhm.
Um, don't be afraid to have a roommate. I'm cheap, so like I'm like all about the roommate life. So I'm like, I don't want to spend money. I don't care if I have a roommate. Like my rent is cut in half.
Mhm.
It's not a big deal. But I think also like just don't be afraid. Like if you buy a house and you hate it, you can always sell it. Do your due diligence. There are a lot of good resources out there and a lot of good people. Try to get plugged into a group. Check out like your local meetup and see if there's any real estate groups. Go on Facebook and look for real estate groups. Go on Reddit. Like I love Reddit, and they've got a really good real estate investing subreddit. And just start learning. Just start learning about it, and just don't be afraid. People are always like, oh, like your house is your biggest purchase of your life. I'm like, yeah, it probably is, and I have two, so it's like it's fine. Like it's a big purchase, but don't let that deter you. And realize too that your primary residence will always be like considered a liability, right? Because you live in it, and it's your home, so it's providing
Mhm.
you shelter and a roof over your head. But the point of living in a home isn't that it's cash flowing for you, right? It's just providing your one of your basic needs of shelter. But a rental property is something that'll actually it's an asset. It's not a liability. It will put money into your bank account and not just take money out of it. Um, and don't be afraid to run it like a business. I know my tenants, they're great people, but I'm not necessarily friends with them.
Mhm.
Um, I don't rent to friends or people that I know just because I don't want those lines to be blurred. I know other people have different preferences, but it's just something that I choose not to do because I know myself, and if it were my friends that I were renting to, it wouldn't be a business anymore. So I try to set boundaries with that. And yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of trying something different and trying something new. I think it's a great way to supplement your income. I think it's a great way to really learn. I've learned more about taxes and property laws and people becoming a landlord than most of the other endeavors I've taken on in my life. So it really is a way to just to get like kind of like grassroots community knowledge, which is
Mhm.
something that's cool to be a part of.
And let's talk about your entrepreneurship as well, because you have your website, rockstarburst.com. So what was
Yeah.
the information behind creating that, and what do you hope to do with your site, and just, from that perspective?
Yeah. So I've always, I guess, had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. I just have always been intrigued in business, even though I didn't realize it at first. And then once I started going to school for business, I felt like I was doing the right thing. And I'm like, oh, like, yeah, I guess I've always just kind of had this mindset, and this is just solidifying things that I already knew. So I have an LLC, just the Rockstar Burst is my LLC, and I've kind of got a couple different avenues that I'm still debating on taking with it. One might be a coaching series, either based on like career and professional development. I do a lot of resume building for people. Most of it is pro bono because I kind of like doing resumes. um, but at some point, I would like to put together just like a program of like how to help people really get their resume and their LinkedIn and their their digital profile set for for being
Please
online and getting a job.
Please let me know, because this would benefit EXPs, and we could really market this and push this, because I
Yeah,
get resume questions all the time in LinkedIn and social media. And because you have
nice.
worked on the account manager side, you know what to look for. And that would be awesome. So I didn't mean to cut you off,
No,
but
no,
that
you're
would be
fine.
great. So yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
Nice. No, you're good. And then the other
Mhm.
part, like I'm really, I'm passionate about just helping people learn financial tips and tricks and becoming financially independent. I think so many people just look around them, and most of us grew up in houses where our parents worked a job, and my parents or my dad's retiring this year, and my mom is retired, so it's like they worked their jobs and they
Mhm.
provided for us, and they were great parents, and they kind of did the whole, you work a job and that's your career and then you retire. And I think a lot of us look at that model and it's not what we want necessarily. Um, so I, but I was never really taught great financial advice as a kid and growing up, and I don't think a lot of my friends were either. So um, Dave Ramsey is a great resource. There's so many. I mean, there's honestly so many like good budgeting and financial planners and financial gurus out there, and just learn from them. And it sounds super foreign at first. You're like, wait, you want me to do what? Like, this isn't what I was taught growing up. And just kind of breaking that mold, and having a budget and learning to stay within that budget, and thinking about your future and your legacy. I don't That's like not normal for a lot of people, I don't think.
Well, you're right. I have a finance degree, and my goal coming out of school was to teach financial literacy to people, especially at a younger age, because I think if you start younger and you implement like principles younger, it'll help you to stay disciplined as you get older, and then you'll be able to reap the benefits. And I started young, and I was just blessed to have a family that mentored me on investing. So I understood and I got it at a young age, but like you said, a lot of us especially working in our industry and just in general, don't really understand the power of a dollar or credit, just how to build your credit and make sure that you maintain great credit, and how credit is like your golden ticket, to obtain a lot of things in life. But oftentimes, because we may not have, and it's not, I mean, the faults of our parents, it's just they didn't know, and they didn't know what to
Right.
do, how to do things. And, sometimes those habits get passed down. And until we take the time to break that cycle and just educate ourselves, we will repeat the same things. But I think that's awesome, man, because people need to hear that and to understand that, that financial part of it is a big chunk of just helping you in so many areas of life. Yeah.
Totally.
hmm
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not gonna keep you too
And
much
then,
longer. I got two more questions for you. You gotta give us those books. So as promised, you can give me like your top three books for myself and the EXP to read. And then two, your advice for anybody entering the industry, and your advice for anybody looking to evolve in the experiential marketing industry. So it's like three more questions. So you can tackle them whenever you wish.
oh, books. There's so many books to read. I am big on just books that tell me who I am and how to be a better version of myself. So this isn't a well, there is a book, but the Strengths Finders book and test, I would highly recommend taking that and just learning, what you're good at. If you are a super calculated, risk averse, kind of like by the book person, you'll
Mhm.
probably struggle in this field because it's very much off the cuff. It's not structured. It's it's thinking on the fly. It's solving things on the fly. It's being okay with working crazy hours. It's working with people and interacting with people of all different types and backgrounds and everything. So if you are a if you know you like structure, or you take these tests and realize like, oh yeah, like I've got a much more structured inner self than what I realized, you'll struggle in this field. I've seen people who just don't cope well with this
Mhm.
when they're out in the field, and it's not
Mhm.
that they're it's not that they're bad people. It's just that this isn't their strength, which is okay. I would be a terrible accountant. I would be awful. I would lose lose my patience in spreadsheets
Me
all day.
too.
Like I do my own budget, but that's about as far as it goes.
And the name of your book, the book that she's referring to, because I was looking it up on my computer, Strengths Finder, and it's by Tom Rath. Strengths Finder 2.0 by Tom Rath. So
hmm
you can take a test, you were saying, to find out what your strengths are, right?
hmm And it gives you like your top five, and then there's a bunch of criteria you can do based on what your top five are. So it's just kind of a cool way to figure yourself out. Another one which isn't really like experiential related, but it's the five love languages, and just kind of
Yeah.
learning that. Just
Gary
learning a
Chapman.
lot about myself.
Yeah. It's a good book.
Not really a great great book for like business necessarily, but just good for personal growth.
Mhm.
Um, and then another book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It
Mhm.
is probably read it two times, and it's just got lots of little nuggets of like how to be a persuasive person, not a manipulative person, but still find ways to really kind of get what you want and better your cause, and just better yourself. That's a There's a lot of good tips and tricks in that one.
And that's by Dale Carnegie, right?
Dale Carnegie, yep.
Yep, I'm on it. I'm on it over here. I'm gonna put links to all the books in the comments for you guys, so you can go back and you can purchase them. I'll be doing these on Audible while we driving from state to state. Uh, so yes, definitely. All right, and then let's wrap up. Your top tip for people entering the industry and wanting to progress into other avenues.
If you're looking to get into the industry, I would say just do it. Just find an opportunity and try it out. There's gigs posted online. You can look under Craigslist and find event gigs. I used to find work there all the time when I was younger. And find people who do this and connect with them because I bring my friends along to my events. I just had two friends work with me at the Final Four this past weekend, and it's fun. It's fun when you're working with people that you know. It's great to meet new people, but it's also fun to like have people that are in your court and out there with you. And if you're looking to advance your career, find a mentor. That is such a big thing you can do. Just find someone who and like mentorship is a two-way street, right? We always think that we're gonna get this mentor and they're gonna teach us all these things, but it really is like a teacher student, but it's also a teacher teacher relationship because you'll teach your mentor things, especially because we're in different phases in life. I mean, a lot of my mentors are 10 to 20 years older than I am, and it's fun to hear their wisdom, and I think they enjoy just the world that I live in.
Mhm.
So mentorship is big as well.
And I'm gonna throw a shameless plug. You do what? Purchase my book because it'll assist you in beginning your career as an EXP and learning how to progress the right way in our industry. So if you haven't already, it's on Amazon. It's been doing really well, gotten well over 20 reviews, and
Nice.
people just enjoy reading it and enjoying having that um, candid what was I gonna say, insight from somebody that's in the field. So I'm not
Yeah.
only saying that because it's just my book. You can read the reviews and they'll tell you the story there. But
And subscribe
nonetheless,
to your list. Your email list is good too.
thank you. I appreciate all the support. See,
Yeah.
it's a hustle, you know. It is a hustle, you know, and I think, and you can attest to this too, working in this industry, it helps you to learn how to be a great entrepreneur, how to invest in properties. And there's so many life lessons that you learn just executing an event, dealing with rejection, you know, and how to
Yeah.
deal with various personalities. And I mean, if you want to go ahead and share some of your lessons that you've been able to take away, feel free, you know, uh, MJ, if you want. Like, what have you been able to just learn in life and working as an EXP?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is that there's always opportunity out there. I've had several campaigns fall through last minute. I thought that like, oh, I'm gonna go on this tour, I'm gonna be part of this campaign, and then like the plug got pulled and it was just over, and I was like, now what? But every time there's always been something else. Like it didn't mean I didn't have to look for it or work for it, but there was always another door that opened.
Hmm.
So it's okay to be kind of like down for a minute, but like don't stay down. Realize that you just have to kind of just dust yourself off and get back out there. That's been big. And then just keeping connections. Like don't burn bridges. There are very few bridges that I've burned with people over the years. You never know when you're going to cross paths with somebody again, or when you're going to need someone to give you a hand up, or if you can help someone else too. Like there's been a couple opportunities where I'm like, oh, like this is just not for me right now, but let me reach out to a few people in my network and see if it's something that they'd be interested in. So just keeping those connections.
Hmm.
Those are kind of like the two big ones, just keep pushing on when things don't work out, and keep in touch with people along the way.
Hmm. And speaking of keeping in touch, how can people stay connected with you via social
Yeah.
media or your website? If someone wants to contact you, how can they do so?
Yeah. So
Mhm.
you can find me on Facebook. My name is MJ. My last name is Berst, Berst. I think my settings are set to private, so you might have to send me a message. But you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at rockstarburst. You can sign up on my website at rockstarburst.com. Um, or you can email me. It's just mjburst@gmail.com.
All right. Well, you've been inspirational between Nipsey, me crying my eyes out earlier with these little bags, to now getting on this pop up with you and just hearing your story and having you share your experiences. It just sheds light on why I love working in this industry and connecting with people such as yourself. And I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us and to share your story. So you've been very, well, truly inspiring to me, and I appreciate you. So thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm really glad that we got to connect and do this.
Yes, yes. So EXPs, I'm gonna go ahead and post those books that MJ noted in the comments. And if you want to reach out to her and just ask her any more questions, I'm not gonna say she's gonna do resume tips and resume critique pro bono, but if you want to reach out to her and have her assist you with critiquing and building your resume, feel free to do so. And enjoy the rest of your night. And thank you, MJ.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
All right, bye.
Bye.